To Niger Republic, where the country has suspended its military agreement with the United States with immediate effect. The Niger Pact allowed U.S. military personnel and civilian defense staff to operate from Niger, which plays a central role in the U.S. military operations in Africa's Sahel region and is home to a major airbase. The decision came after senior U.S. officials visited the West African country earlier to discuss democratic transition. Ruling military spokesman Colonel Amadou Abdramane says the U.S. delegation did not follow diplomatic protocol and that Niger wasn't informed about the composition of the delegation, the date of its arrival of the agenda. Adebayo Oluwake is a global affairs analyst who joins me now for more on this developing story. After cutting similar ties with France, we're seeing Niger also ending military cooperation with the United States. Precisely what do you think this means for U.S. operations in the Sahel region? Of course, Niger being a home to one of U.S. major air bases.
Thanks for having me, but I can hardly hear you. I assume you're asking what the termination of U.S. presence in Niger means for U.S. operations or something?
What it means for U.S. military operation in the Sahel region.
Okay. Well, as of now, we cannot say, because we don't know exactly what the quantum of those U.S. operations are, other than the fact that the U.S. operates two air bases in Niger. One is in Niamey, which is the capital, and the other, and perhaps the most visible one in terms of public discourse, is the one in Agadez, where the U.S. has its MQ-9 Reaper drones stationed. And those drones are being used to gather intelligence on the movement of jihadi forces in the Sahel, according to the U.S. Africa Command. But beyond that, we don't know really what the scope and intensity of U.S. operations are. So it's going to be very difficult to begin to hazard a guess or make an analysis as to what import this would have for U.S. operations. But without any doubt, the fact that it's quite a sophisticated military facility, it's reputed to have cost the U.S. about $100 million to build, suggests that it's of quite some strategic value, and the U.S. is unlikely to take this expulsion lightly.
Exactly the point I was just going to raise. Niger before now has been a frontline partner of the West in battling jihadists in the Sahel, like you mentioned. But do you think that Washington will be able to walk away from its $1 million investment?
Well, Niger is a sovereign state, and the existence of the base was a product of a bilateral agreement between the two states, Niger and the United States. And one party to that agreement has now repudiated it. So the U.S. will have to accept the position of the Nigerian authorities. But then there will most likely, of course, be repercussions. Recall that when the coup that brought Brigadier General Chiani to power in July last year occurred, the French were immediately expelled. The U.S. was not expelled. The U.S., in fact, did not condemn the coup. The coup had been condemned by France and ECOWAS member states. And France was to get into a very uncomfortable exchange with the United States due to what it considered to have been the lack of support for its position by the U.S. Now, several months down the line, the Nigerians are asking the U.S. to go. There are those who believe that they didn't know how to ask America to leave, and that the visit recently, just a couple of days ago, of the commander of the Africa Corps, General Langley, as well as the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs in the State Department and the Assistant Secretary of State for Defense in the U.S., that visit actually provided the alibi for Niger to take action, in the sense that the authorities in Niger reportedly said that the American delegation was speaking to them in derogatory terms and was making threats, and then this forms a basis. So, but I suspect that the Nigerian authorities have now ensured the deployment of a sufficient number of Russian troops, if you like, or the Africa Corps, which is a replacement for the Wagner Group, on its territory, and therefore has the confidence to ask the U.S. to leave.
It's the same allegation that Niger had against France after it tried to fast-track the return to democratic rule. But now we've seen the new juntas moving fast away from the West, and Russia seems to be in talks with them. What does this new affiliation with countries like Russia and China mean for the sub-region?
Well, the Chinese have always been in Africa. The Western media perhaps will begin to present a narrative, of the Chinese coming in, doing so many things. The Hong Kong Chinese had always been in Africa. They are English speaking. Most of the household utilities that were being used in Africa 30, 40 years ago, lanterns, torchlights, knives, they were made by the Hong Kong Chinese across many African countries. So it's not exactly right, in my own view, for people to suggest that maybe the Chinese are in some sort of a scramble. They've always been here. It's just that now they have a lot of cash. As for the Russians, I believe that what is unfolding is an extension of the geopolitical struggles that we have seen going on between Russia and the Euro-Atlantic powers. It is extending into new frontiers, and Africa happens to be that new frontier. But nonetheless, it is also playing out in some ways in Asia. And it is in Asia that they actually have the Chinese, especially in the North China Sea, as well as on the matters with the Taiwan Strait. You have the Chinese and the Americans sparring regularly in that direction. But this game is now playing out in Africa. It's a new Cold War. And I just wonder if the continental and regional bodies in Africa are sufficiently prepared for this new Cold War and to pitch their own position, in a way in which it will favor the African people.
Absolutely. And they say it's the new scramble for Africa. Perhaps we'll see with time how other countries also respond. But whatever happens with Niger, they say easily snowballs to Nigeria. Are you concerned about the issue of internal security now that France and the U.S. are out?
In some ways, I actually think that the expulsion of the U.S. from Niger could be a bonus for Nigeria. You recall that I think sometime late in 2022, two drones violated Nigerian airspace, and they were picked on radar by the Nigerian Air Force. One of those drones was actually chased by Nigerian Air Force GF-17 Thunder fighter aircraft and chased out of the Nigerian airspace. This was public knowledge, and there was nothing secret about it. And the only person who operates a base and who operates those kind of drones is the United States. And you may wonder why the United States would spy on a country it considers to be its ally, which is Nigeria. So in some ways, the expulsion of the U.S. from Niger could actually be to the comfort of some countries in the region, and perhaps including Nigeria. Having said that, I feel strongly that states must continue to collaborate and cooperate, especially in the fight against terrorism. It's very difficult for one state to go it all alone. And to this extent, I feel that whichever actors we have, whether domestic or regional or foreign, what is important is to fashion a way in which there can be collaboration in a way that engenders confidence by all the parties. And to this extent, I think there might be a loss of that form of collaboration with that expulsion. But otherwise, if some parties will operate without being transparent, then there are those who will strongly feel that the expulsion of the U.S. may actually be for the good of countries in the Sahel and indeed countries in our own part of the sub-region.
Adebayo Oluwake is a global affairs analyst, and he joined us live on the program. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.